Hello and welcome to Top Voice Tuesday on September 23rd. I'm very excited to have with us today Dr. Pierre-Nicolas Schwab to talk about what is a top voice and the research that he's done around this topic. This show started as a platform to bring the top voice community together and introduce all of the amazing people that are part of this broader community. And we start the show every week with a question, and so we're going to get behind that question of how did you get here and who became a top voice and why did you become a top voice. And I'm just super excited about this conversation. Dr. Schwab, I said I'll only call you that once. We'll call you Pierre going forward. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself here in just a moment. In the meantime, for those of you on the line right now, please do let us know where you're dialing in from. Leave a question in the chat. We'll get to that as we can. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please do be sure to subscribe to the newsletter that I'll talk about at the end of the episode. Pierre, we met about 8 months ago, maybe,
Something like this, yeah.
because you shared the example of the study. So tell us who you are, tell us what you do, and how did you get into starting a study on who is the top voice community?
Yeah. So I'm Pierre-Nicolas, as you said. I'm based in Belgium. I'm French, and I run a market research company called Into the Minds. We operate from Paris, France, and from Brussels, Belgium, in all of Europe. And as a PhD researcher, I was very much interested into in social media and especially how algorithms work, recommendations algorithms. So this is my specialty. And obviously, there is one algorithm that remains a little bit mysterious. That's the LinkedIn algorithm that keeps changing. And many people have tried to understand the recipe that is behind it and to, manipulate it, sometimes with success. And my journey on LinkedIn began a few years ago by analyzing how a blog post or post becomes viral and what are the triggers that are used by the LinkedIn algorithm to make a post viral. And my journey then brought me on to another topic, which was top voice topic. I tried to understand very candidly why people were chosen as top voices. There wasn't a lot of literature on the subject. So I decided to dig by myself and collect the data set by myself, and that's how the article was born, actually.
When we talked about this when we first met, and I was asking about the study, and super excited, we're going to talk about some of these details. You mentioned the algorithm and you mentioned getting behind the data, and we've had this conversation on our show here about chasing the algorithm and trying to go viral. I'm more convinced than ever that nobody actually knows how to go viral. I've had so many people come up to me and say, "Oh, I can help you go viral." And I don't know that anyone actually understands this. But you've looked at the data. So let's start with the specific questions. You talked about wanting to understand the algorithm and the demographics, but was there more to it? Was there a problem statement behind what you were searching for, or was it just curiosity?
That was just curiosity. So my PhD was already done, so that was 100% just out of curiosity, and it was a trend. It was a trendy topic. So I wanted also to make a contribution to the LinkedIn community, but because that's a community where I'm very much involved. I have also 15,000 followers, although I'm not a top voice, just like just like you. So I was jealous about you, and that's why I wanted to research that. But no, more seriously, I just wanted to make a contribution, and I got that opportunity a few years ago. Someone had developed a plugin for LinkedIn, an automation plugin, and he was kind enough when he sold his company to make an extract of the data set, and that's how I ended up analyzing what is, in my opinion, still today the biggest data set ever analyzed on LinkedIn. It was 1 million members and something like 4 to 5 million conversations. So it gave me really a very, very good foundation to understand how the algorithm was working and to research the antecedents, what we call in research antecedents, so all the triggers, all the variables that do influence virality.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. And you mentioned follower count really quick. And I want to be clear, the folks that we've had on this show, follower count plays a role, but you have more followers than I do. I think I have maybe 4,500, 4,000, something like
Mhm.
that. So, what data did you find? And let's talk about maybe some of the particulars that you saw in the data set. And then we'll dive into some maybe surprising things.
Yeah. So basically, I analyzed all the data that was available in one post. So it went for, and obviously in the profile of the people that are analyzed. So it went from language to location, through a number of followers, but also the content of the very post, a number of hashtags, emojis, the number of words, everything. So we put that in a big statistical model, and we did what we call predictive modeling assessment or predict modeling exercise. So we compared many different predictive models with machine learning, and we ended up with one model that worked very well, that was able to predict with something like 60-70% the virality of the post. And basically, most of the virality was explained through the size of the network, the number of hashtags, and the number of emojis. Um, now, need to be careful. It's not because well, you know, put a lot of hashtags and emojis in a post that it will become viral. There is correlation and there is causation. So you should always be very careful about that. So I was only observing from the outside, the different elements of a post, but without analyzing the very subject and the time effect on the post itself. But what I can say is that the network at the time I analyzed the algorithm was the biggest contributor to virality.
And what define going viral for us? What did you have a threshold of what that means in terms of number of impressions, reposts, comments? What is the threshold for viral?
Yeah, so I define being viral for posts on LinkedIn in my very first research. I don't have the threshold that I used was 100 reactions, be it comments or likes, thumbs ups or anything like this. So 100 reaction was the threshold. Why did I choose 100? Well, it was totally arbitrary. Because at that time I think it was already difficult for me to reach that 100 reaction mark. So, and I think for most of us, reaching 100 is something that is quite unusual.
Interesting. I will admit that I don't track really any of my statistics, and I didn't really track any of my statistics when I became a top voice. So tell us a little bit about the data set and the demographics. Who is this community? Where do they come from? What are some of the breakdowns in terms of statistics?
Yeah. So first of all, remember it's a sample. So there is no data on Top Voice. LinkedIn doesn't release any data set that you can analyze, that you can study. So I had to build my own data set. So with a colleague of mine, we really scrapped manually a lot of profiles from Top Voice people. We analyzed all the posts, the number of posts over a certain period of time. And what I discovered is after collecting 1,000 profiles is that, well, most of the top voice people are men, actually. So there are 56% of men and 44% of women. And well, it was very interesting for me to understand whether there was some key differences in terms of metrics between those men and women. And what I found out is that indeed there are some, well, quite big differences in terms of followers, for instance. So how many people do follow those people? And so what I found, for instance, is that the median number of followers for men is 63,000 63,000, and it's only 30,000 for women. So women attract a lot less followers than men do. So there is a difference there. There is also a difference in terms of how many posts they publish on LinkedIn. I had that assumption a few years ago, that the more you post, the more exposure you get. I think that has been debunked over time. So there is no real correlation. In my opinion, it's the virality, or the number of people who like your post is more linked to the very content of it. But we do observe that women actually post less than men, and there is also a great variance in the sense that people have very different posting habits. So you have top voices who post nothing, and you have top voices who post more than once a day, which is normally something that you should not recommend. So by when you read all the literature on the algorithm, well, most specialists, if you can call them like this, will tell you that you should not post every day.
Interesting. I know that when I first started, I was posting maybe once a week, and I've heard people post a couple times a week. You
Hmm.
mentioned content, and what about format? There was a big movement towards video, there's short posts, there's inspirational kind of meme like posts, there's humor, there's long form content, which is what I was doing. What does the data tell us about the style of posting and its relationship to the community?
So I wish I had that answer, but we did not study the type of post. So it was already very difficult to collect all the data on those 1,000 top voices. So imagine if I had to collect also the content of the post over a period of 6 months. Some people post or had posted 500 posts over 6 months. So it will be a huge database to collect manually. So that's something that I didn't do. But most of the time, if I recall correctly, those were only posts, text-based posts with emojis, and that was no more than that.
Yeah. You mentioned the breakdown of men and women. What about the distribution across the world? I know you looked at some of the geography, and does that tell us anything interesting about who these folks are, where they come from?
US first, yeah. So I think that's a movement, or that's a community that is very much anchored in the US. Very surprisingly, what you see, you have a lot of spread in terms of number of followers between the US on the one side and other countries. So in the US, top voices are, by my definition, really influencers on LinkedIn, because they have a large median number of followers. It's about 240,000 followers per top voice. So that's massive. But when you look to other countries, especially European countries like Spain, Austria, Germany, Switzerland, or the UK, I mean, that number goes down to something like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. So it's much easier to become a top voice in the old world, in Europe, than it is in the US. I think the the hurdle, or the threshold to become a top voice in the US, because there is also much more competition there, is it's much higher. So my advice, if you want to become a top voice, come to Europe. Maybe the odds will be better.
It's really interesting because I know several top voices that I've met. There are people who are the data may be skewed by people who are celebrities or
Yeah,
people who are big. You look at Simon Sinek and
of course,
Adam Grant. They are top voices, but they're of course top voices because they've been at this for a long time and
of
they
course.
have a million followers. And then there's random people like me who got picked up by the algorithm somewhere, which leads me to another question about, was there anything surprising in the data that you didn't expect, or that was something you weren't really expecting to see?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to comment on your previous comment. Well, there is obviously like big names in the US, big names out there who have that top voice badge. So that's why I use specifically not the average number of followers, but I always use median, so that it gives you a better idea of who these people are. So what was surprising is that heterogeneity in the numbers, and between countries, between men and women. I was expecting differences between men and women. Why? Because I had made previous analysis in my first study between men and women. I also made a very specific study on virality in France, where I discovered that most posts that went viral were actually posted by young, attractive women. So, which led me to the conclusion that if you want to go viral on LinkedIn, you better be young, between 18 and 35-year-old, attractive women that will give you the better chances to go viral. But some people have criticized me for, well, they said finding the wheel again. But I mean, I just wanted to put some numbers on that and to, well, prove it, and it's actually proven. Yeah. So, man, oh man. And now, what really struck me when I did a study on the top voices is the difference between country, and also the fact that there is no pattern. Yeah, so you cannot link being a top voice to something that you do. As you said, Michael, you were picked by the algorithm. For which reason? I don't know. So there is no pattern in the frequency of posting. There is no pattern in where you live. There is no pattern in how many followers you have. I encountered people from all over the world who had from, like you, well, 1,500 followers to 500,000 followers. People were posting once a year to people who were posting twice a day. There is just no pattern. One thing, though, that I found is when I did the semantic analysis of the title of those people, and I think that's very interesting. Um, those people, well, most of the people add some very specific title in their LinkedIn headlines: CEO, speaker, founder, author, board member, business angel. Those kind of titles kind of resonates, and perhaps there is a link between that, because well, my assumption is that the LinkedIn algorithm picks not randomly, but picks preferably people with those kind of titles to become top voices,
Mm.
whatever the number of followers, whatever the number of posts that they have published. So there is kind of, I think there is some kind of randomness in how people are picked up.
It's really interesting because I think as we've had people on this show and I've talked to a lot of people now, and they talk about one theme that does come out in their stories. I wouldn't call it the data, I'd call it their stories. Is people were posting in a way that was authentic to them, meaning they were taking some kind of unique tone, either in the way they were posting, the content of what they were posting on a topic that they were passionate about, and maybe having the sort of real talk and being willing to kind of blaze a trail through some of these conversations. I think that was one attribute that seems to be true when I meet the folks that I've met. The second one that is really, I think, interesting, which I don't know how you'd ever study, is giving and sharing without any expectation of return. This wasn't a campaign to become something. It was a willing, conscious choice to give and share. And that seems to be a thread through the people that I've met that have become part of this
Yeah, yeah.
community. And I wonder how that shows up. I just wonder, there's a black box somewhere where the leadership from LinkedIn says, "Hey, I've seen these people that share these common attributes." I don't know how you'd study that, but I'm curious how you interpret those two attributes against the data that you've looked at.
Well, those attributes are in the very content of the post. And as I said, well, I did not study the very content of the post, but I do agree with you. So I very much believe in authenticity and the tone that you are using. Uh, there are too many people out there on LinkedIn that do expect a return, that actually do post to get clients, get clicks, get likes, or whatever. Um, I do believe that if you share something that is genuine, if you share some added value, real added value, so not AI generative AI type of stuff. If you really speak with your art and you share some knowledge that you have, and you do that consistently and over time, then well, people will start following you, and that's how you become a leader. I very much believe in authentic talks and authentic content, and I'm very worried about the trend that you are currently observing on LinkedIn, where a lot of comments, a lot of posts are actually generated by AI, be it ChatGPT or Claude. So, friend of mine with someone with tens, thousands of people following him on LinkedIn, Bruno in France, he told me that we need to speak to humans. So we need to develop that ability to do what he calls H to H, human to human conversation, instead of B2B, business to business, or business to consumer. So we are humans. We speak to humans, and I think we tend to lose that ability to do that, because the tools that we have at our disposal are making it too easy to write and to publish crappy content.
I agree with that entirely. And I want to tell a little story. And I want that story to lead into your story about what happened to you on the
Oh
platform
yeah.
recently, because the effect of automation on LinkedIn is starting to create some, maybe I would say, unintended consequences, and we're gonna talk about that. But I want to tell a little story. I had met a gentleman who won't share his name through a professional community, and he is someone who helps LinkedIn influencers. And certainly, he's got a business built around creating brand deals that are part of people's LinkedIn presence, and nothing wrong with that. I have no issue with that
Mhm.
whatsoever. And he was piloting a little bit of work with me, and he gave me some advice. And he said, "Here's the way you go viral." And he shared with me the way to structure a post in terms of its formatting, which very much suspiciously looked like every other Chat GPT post I've seen. It had the bulleted short sentence phrases. It has an icon in front of each of the paragraphs. We've all seen them, and I can spot them a mile away. And I was trying to follow his advice, thinking, "Oh, this is how it works." And I did a couple of them, and I remember thinking to myself, one, that was too easy to build something. But
Mhm.
number 2, after I did it, I felt guilty. I felt like I had just done something. It wasn't quite like lying, but it was not me. It was not my voice. And here I had been writing for 2 years on LinkedIn, long form post content. They were my words. Every single, and I obviously they were my words. I had a little to format it and do all this stuff. And I finally did a post about 2 weeks, sort of came clean and said, "Hey, I'm guilty of chasing the algorithm I am, and I'm never gonna do that again." And I worry that at some day, is it just gonna be AI talking to AI on LinkedIn? And how do we know that, or on any social media, honestly, where does that leave us?
That's a very good question. As far as I'm concerned, I do not worry anymore about whether or not I will be listened to, whether or not I will be read on LinkedIn. I just want to, post what I think, be honest about what I think, and not use any automation tool. And yeah, if I get 1,000 views, I'm happy. If I get 100, I'm happy. Sometimes you just need the right views. You just need to reach the right people. That's all what matters. I don't care about likes from people that do not know me, or that will forget what I said about 5 minutes after. That's not what counts. What counts is that you should leave a footprint. You write, you are there as a human and as a contributor to leave a footprint behind you. I started that path 20 years ago with my blog. I almost got 1 million unique visitors on the blog. So I was happy to leave a footprint. And I'm still seeing thousands of people reading me every day. So I'm just trying, to be very authentic and to do the same. And whatever the metrics are, I don't really care.
What a great phrase, "Leave a footprint." I'm gonna keep that one and reuse it. I think
Yeah.
it's a really poignant image of what we're here to do. I want to give you a chance to tell your story as we're talking about automation. We started with the study, and maybe I'll get in trouble from LinkedIn by doing this episode and trying to have a little bit of data around the conversation. But I think it's important. I made a commitment to myself to have the real talk as well. So here we are. You just shared with me recently that you had your account paused or suspended. And I've had a lot of conversations with people that are starting to be affected by the use of automation and
Yeah.
automation engines behind the account in maybe combating some of this AI trend. Tell us a little bit about your story and then we'll wrap up the conversation.
So it was actually not the first time that my account got banned, but this time it was pretty serious because it was permanent, so I was not able to get it back. So to make a long story short, I got it back, so that's a spoiler.
While you're here.
Uh, but the first ban that I got was using automation, well, many years ago. I did it once. It was a lot of stress, so I didn't do it anymore, and I will never do it again because it doesn't make sense. Yeah? It doesn't fit with what I just explained a few seconds before. Um, but well, I was, posting some, quite strong posts, well, opinions on LinkedIn, and one of them, uh, there was a debate that was started between two people that were having an argument in the comments. The post in itself was about Generation Z and the involvement of Generation Z in the workplace. So that nothing, very creepy or nothing very special. It's a very usual topic out there. But those people were kind of having an argument in the comments, and my assumption is that that's what caused my account to be banned permanently. So um, I wanted to log in one day in my app on my smartphone, and it didn't work. So LinkedIn was asking me to prove my identity, which I tried to do, and didn't get any results. So I got in touch with the, well, customer service, if you can call it like this. By the way, it's very funny. You can get in touch with the customer service only if you have a LinkedIn account. So how do you get in touch with them when we have a problem logging in? But eventually, I found one formula, and I was able to reach them on Twitter. And well, they came back to me and said, "Well, you did something very wrong. We suspended your account permanently. You will never get it back."
Wow.
I said, "Well, I had no clue what I had done." And well, 72 hours later, I got a notification in my mailbox from someone in my network that was sending me a message through LinkedIn. And I said, well, something is wrong there. My account is suspended, so I should not be able to get that notification. I clicked on the notification and I logged in. I had already disinstalled all LinkedIn applications from smartphone, iPad, and so forth and so on. So I was not expecting to recover it anymore. And then suddenly I was back. No explanation, no nothing. So I think that was a penalty that was probably given by an algorithm which had spotted a few words in the comments of those people, comments that were
Mm.
posted below the post. So it got flagged, and then the account that was linked to it got banned, and that was it. I hope that one human eventually got involved, and that's how I got the account recovered. But otherwise, it would have been terrible.
It's so interesting, and I've seen this. I've been in a couple instances getting ready to leave a comment to someone on a post, pretty innocuous, nothing controversial. Excuse me, and I see that it'll say, "Oh, this comment maybe doesn't pass." I'll get a little red warning, and I'll have to rewrite it, and it's really interesting. So I do think there's a bit of a filter happening in some of the experience, particularly as the automation ramps up. And I think the lesson here, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're here. I think the lesson for all of us is really, if you're trying to hack the system, it's really going to be a chasing your tail kind of an experience. It's really about sharing what you're authentically interested in
Mhm.
sharing, being as honest and forthright as you can, certainly being honest and provocative without being controversial. I've seen some posts that are really quite aggressive at times, and so I think there's a civility to this to this platform in a way that people are generally here to support each other. But yeah, it's tricky. And I think if we're worried about, the next time someone comes up and tells you they can give you the secret mousetrap to be able to go viral or hack the system, be cautious and be wary, because I don't know that anyone really knows how all of this works deep down.
Nobody knows. I mean, even at LinkedIn, I mean, the systems are so complex. There are different algorithms that have an interplay together. So I doubt that someone understands the whole picture. Just to finish on that, virality is also caused by emotions. So whether it's a negative emotion or positive emotion, that's how you trigger virality. Here, what we should do if we want to be genuine people and well, good people to each other is to trigger positive emotions, but not excessive emotion. Just positive emotions by sharing what we know and trying to make the world just a better world.
I couldn't have said it better. I was going to ask you to wrap us up, and that's a perfect way to do it. As there is a tradition on this show, we do have a bonus question, and it's actually very tied to the conversation we've just been having around AI. And this is something that you've studied. The question that's left for you is that in the world of AI now, what is the essential skill that we all need to have as we're moving forward? If time and budget aren't a concern or a consideration, we had unlimited resources to individually learn what we need to do. What's your recommendation for someone? How do they get started and how do they
Well, if you are
embrace
in
this
a
moment?
business perspective, what you should have is a business case. So you should not start just you know um, out of willingness to try AI because it will bring nothing unless you just want to learn and do not want to apply. But if your goal is really to make a difference, to well pump up your efficiency in the business, then you should have a very strong business case. And I would certainly recommend as an accelerator to hire someone or to have someone as a coach to help you through all the tools. There are so many tools out there. It is impossible to have an overview of everything that is available. You will lose a lot of time, a lot of energy. You will probably get desperate. So take someone with you. It will cost you a little bit of money, or find someone who can guide you through all the tools, recommend a few tools, focus on those ones, and certainly do not try to master or use too many tools. It will bring you nowhere.
What a great recommendation. We talk about getting started a lot, but I think your caution to everyone is the right one, which is have a bit of a plan and don't try to do too much. Be focused. Be clear about the problem you're solving. And I was just looking at the chat and the comments here, which is similar to your chat. We got a comment from Nikki about your comment about the right views with the right people and leaving the right footprint. I think what you're recommending here on the AI front is focus on the right tools with the right business case, have a bit of a plan and learn as you go.
Definitely.
And I think that's great. That's great advice. Pierre, where can people follow you and any other studies that you want to point us to? We'll put the study link in the chat so folks can go that. But where can people follow
So
you and
obviously
find out
on
more about you?
LinkedIn, I'm also experimenting more and more on TikTok with video content there that I'm also posting on LinkedIn. So I found a great way to kind of reach efficiencies and produce one content and distribute it over different platforms. And obviously on my blog, so www.intotheminds.com/blog. That's where I post every 2 days, some well thorough articles, studies out there. If there is a topic that is of interest to you on LinkedIn, obviously, just reach out to me. You can send me also an email. I'm happy to have a look at it. And when I have the time, when I have the data, I will definitely publish something.
I love that. And we will certainly expect you to hopefully do an update to the Top Voice study in a couple of years, and we'll see
Certainly.
what the data tells us if there's been any changes. I want to thank you for an incredible conversation. Thank you for your initiative in doing this study. I think data tells us so much about the hidden elements of what we think we understand, and then it helps us
Exactly.
uncover what we don't. And I think that's really important for us to be aware of. For everyone who's tuned in today, thank you for tuning in. to the live stream. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast. If you're listening on your favorite platform, if you've enjoyed this conversation or any of our past episodes, please do subscribe to our Friday Focus newsletter. Each week, it recaps this conversation. It includes some additional insights from my book, as well as previews of what's coming up. All of that will be in the show notes and in the captions when we're done. Thank you so
You're
much
welcome.
again,
Thank you.
Pierre. Have a wonderful evening on the other side of the world, and we'll be looking forward to your
Have a
next
nice
study.
day. Bye bye.